So if you're using the demo, you'll have the Mograph module, and I think when you buy it, you have to either get the Studio or the Mograph version. Not all the versions of Cinema 4D come with this Mograph module, but if you have it, which I know you have it in the demo, I was kind of like debating whether we should get into the Mograph tools because they are kind of advanced, but I wish I would have learned them sooner because they can speed up a lot of modeling and animation tasks. So I just want to show you the basics of how to use them. So first, let's create a cube. And then the mainstay of these Mograph tools is this object called a cloner. So before they had the cloner in Cinema 4D, or before they had Mograph, they had this tool here that you can still use called the array, where you drop things in here and then it would clone them, and then you can animate them and do different things. And then once they created the Mograph tools with the cloner, you switched over to this one because it's like a lot more powerful version of this array. So I just want to show you the basics of Mograph. So you use it if you want to duplicate things. So let's take this cube and put it in the cloner, and it can be kind of hard to see what happened, but let's look at this cloner. Let's delete this array. And you see here in the count, we just made 3 cubes, and we're in the mode linear. So these are the things you want to focus on, the count and the mode. And then the next thing you want to look at are these parameters here for position. So this is controlling how far out. So we just drag and so we just click and drag here, and now we're pulling out how far those 3 copies are going to go from each other. So they're going to be 200 centimeters from each other. And since these are 200 centimeters tall, it makes for a perfect fit, but you can do whatever you want. So this is how far they are from each other. So if we create more, we can create 8 of them. Now they're all stacked up on top of each other. So you could do that manually, but this kind of speeds that up. So let's look at some of the other modes here. So we have radial mode, which the thing you're going to want to look at here is the radius. So, and the plane. So you can change that. Let's try to make it flat like this. So now if you increase the count, now we have a bunch of cubes and a circle. And you can control when they go out like that. And the other mode I want to show you is well, of course, the grid array. So what this does is make like a matrix of cubes. So to see it work, instead of using these size things here, we can actually grab these little squares and pull these out, which are changing the same parameter. Oops, I'm going to grab this. So now you can see we have this grid of cubes using the grid array. And the last mode is the object mode, but we need another object in order to use this mode. So let's go and make this figure guy and scale him up so we can show you how the object mode works. So now when you want to use the object mode, we switch the mode into object mode, and then you see here we have this object field, and then you drag an object in it. So that looks pretty janky, but that's because we want to change the distribution here. So what this object mode does, it makes clones of whatever your object is on another object. It uses another object's geometry to distribute the clones. So this one's on vertex, but we want, oh, actually this was a bad example. Undo. So to show you this last mode, we need to create another object. So let's go in here and get this pyramid. Let's move it over here. I'm just going to press T, click and drag to scale it up. So what the object mode does, it makes a bunch of clones based on another object. So to see how it works, let's click on our cloner. Let's switch it to object mode. Then let's drop the pyramid in the object field. So you can see it kind of outlined this pyramid, but that looks pretty janky. So let's switch it to edge mode, and that still doesn't look very good. Polygon center, no, that still looks pretty crappy. Surface, that looks a little better. Let's try turning it up. Okay, you can see what it's trying to do. It's trying to cover the object with the clones. You can turn the count up 2 if you want more to do that. Let's go into volume. So this tries to fill it up with clones. And now we can make this pyramid invisible so you can see what it's trying to do. I could have used a simpler object like another cube. So say if we want to make a cube out of cubes, click on the cloner, and then in the object field, let's drop this new cube in there. So now, and let's make this one invisible, and I'm alt-clicking, that's why I'm doing both of these at the same time. And you can change the different modes, vertex, and just see what it does and how it works. Polygon center, surface, volume. Let's try surface. So you can use these cloners to create repetitive structures, and the cool thing is that you don't have to just use, I'm going to turn this cloner off so we can just look at this one object. You don't have to just use a single object. You can use an entire object like hierarchy, and you can put cloners and cloners too, but let's just look at this really quick. So let's get this cube, let's go into poly mode, and oops, and then let's press I and inner extrude something here. Then press D to bring that out. Oops, I did it multiple times, doesn't really matter. Then I'm going to press I again, and then D. Let's bring out some kind of like dumbbell looking thing. And, okay, so now we have this. And let's go ahead and control drag to duplicate this cube. Then I'm going to put that cube inside the other cube. And then I'm going to rotate it. Oops. Let's go so I can just grab this one. And I'm holding shift to constrain my rotation. So it like snaps it to, I think it does like 20 degrees or 10 degrees or something. So now we have this thing. And then maybe we'll scale it, make it a little bigger. Stick that in there like that. And then I'm going to control drag and make another one and put that in the other one. And then press R and then click here and shift again to snap it. Then E. Then let's move this over. So now we have this weird looking thing. So when I turn the cloner back on, and let's go into radial mode or something. So as you can see, now it has all those objects, but now they're inside. So now this, damn. So I just want to kind of show you the possibilities of using Mograph. So now, once we have something like this, so let's say we want this to be some kind of like weird experimental building. So let's call this building floor. And then we want to have, I don't know, 10 of these floors. So now we can go make another cloner and put the building floor in this cloner. And then this one we want to keep in linear mode. So now I can adjust this Y amount here, or I can try to grab the little square. So then, oops, it's moving it kind of on more than one axis. So let's go up like this. So now I can increase this, and now we have 10 floors that look like this trippy structure that we made. And if you wanted to, you can go get this cloner and put it in another cloner and do that as many times as you want. And and one of the things that's really awesome about these is that all these parameters are live. So I can change this while it's inside of that other one. You can change the radius. You can do whatever you want. You can switch out the objects. You can move the objects. So it's just really, really flexible. And these cloners are just one part of Mograph. One of the other part of Mograph that makes it really powerful is these things called effectors. So you have all these different effectors. So these can be confusing at first, so I just want to show you the basics of them. The one that you'll probably use the most is the random effector. So what effectors do, they affect all the clones inside of a cloner. So they're like special effects to put on the clones. So the way to use them, if you click on a cloner, and you'll see that they have this effectors tab. So the way to use them, see they both have it, let's put it on these clones that are inside this other one. So the way we use it is that we drag the effector into the effectors panel of the cloner. And I don't know if you noticed, but it moved these a little bit. And then if we click on this effector, now this effector is going to change these clones. and it's going to do so randomly. This is a random effector, and we can change the position, the scale, or the rotation, or all three. So let's click on position, and as you see, if I start doing some of this, dragging this around, you can see that it's adding some randomness to the way those clones are duplicated. We can go into the rotation, and now it's rotating them. It's doing some of this. We can do the scale. We can do it per axis, or we can click uniform, so it does their whole thing. And we could get, if we wanted to, we could get the same effector and put it on the overall thing, and now we get this thing that you could probably 3D print and put in some art gallery and be like, I'm a genius 3D artist, and some person would buy it. So, but that's not where these effectors stop, because a lot of them are actually animated too. So let's click on this cloner and rename it Building Base. Okay. So now let's go grab another effector. Let's grab the formula effector. So this one is like the formula deformer, if you remember this from the deformer section, where it automatically animated the thing that the deformer was inside, the formula deformer. So much like that, if we click on our building base cloner and drop the formula effector in there and press play, now it's animating it in this weird way. And so all of the effectors change the position, scale, and rotation. So just remember that. You go in here. So now we can add these numbers up, and now it's doing this kind of creepy moving thing. Click on the formula deformer. We can change the scale, uniform. Let's just do a 0.3 so we get this kind of thing. And we can change the rotation. Let's add a 90. And that's kind of crazy. And I'm using the tab to go between fields. So we can do that. And so these effectors, if you flip through them all and try them all, they all do different things. Some are for animation, some are for still stuff. But we can just delete this. And we'll go through one more effector. Let's look at the step effector. So I'm going to go and just turn off this random effector and turn it off on this one too. And let's go back to our building base. And so what the step effector does, well, you'll see what it does when I drop it in here. So the step effector changes the parameters over. So the step effector controls the parameters gradually. So it increases them. So this is with the scale. So it's increasing the parameters based on this spline here. I know that might sound weird, but look at the curve that these things are scaled by, and look at this curve. And then if you actually control click on this curve and then start dragging around, look at that. It's changing the curve. So do you see the connection? So this is this. So if we had another one here and did this stuff, so this is actually controlling the clones. So you can right click here and reset it, or there's some presets if you just want it to be linear. But just like using the splines and the points, using the, if we draw a spline and run the point tool, by control clicking, you're adding a new point, or actually adding a new spline. Oops. So control click and add points, and I just want to show you so you can see how that's connected. And again, we have the parameters. Right now it's only using scale, but we could do position. Let's make this 500, and it's going to use the same curve. And 90, 90, 90. Some more modern art here. So that's kind of just the basic parts of Mograph. Mograph has all these other options in here, but so Mograph has a lot of other pieces. The last one I'll show you is the tracer, because this isn't an in-depth Mograph thing. We just want to do a basic thing. So let's delete all that, and let's go, since we did the simulate thing, you saw how to make an emitter. So let's make a particle emitter, and let's make the stop emission 240. And let's really zoom in here and rotate it so it's pointing up again. Again, I'm holding shift to constrain it. And this emitter is way too slow. So let's make it 999. Right? And let's go ahead and add 90 rotation, show objects. And let's grab a, let's go with this pyramid. And let's scale it down like that. And then drop the pyramid into our emitter. And actually, no, we don't want it to rotate. Let's take the rotation out. So they're just straight. And we can go ahead and change the speed variation to give them some kind of variation. Now, this is one of the cooler parts of Mograph. And let's actually change this to so it sprays out. Okay. So this is actually one of my favorite parts of Mograph that I like using a lot. And it's called the tracer. And it's called that because it traces objects. So if we go up to the Mograph menu and then go to tracer, and it automatically found our emitter and put it in here, but you can just drag and drop it too. And now let's press play. And now all of a sudden it's tracing these little paths on these objects, because that's what the tracer does. And here's a little cool thing. If you want these paths to kind of look like they're rocket things or something following the object, you go to limit from end and then you set an amount, and as you can see, now it has these little lines following it. Let's actually do 20 that kind of go along with the object that's being emitted. So, and then here we can control the type of splines it's emitting, because this tracer is actually creating splines here. So these are splines, and you can change the type of spline, which you will see why you would want to do that if, since these are particles, we can add in gravity and have our particles, let's try to make them go up and come down or something. Okay, so now we can see them kind of going up and coming down. And, oh, I can show you another thing about the particle emitter. So you see how these triangles don't turn as they should with the direction that they're flying in now? That's why you have this tangential little checkbox here. So now they actually go in their point in the direction that they're moving. So let's try rendering this. And you see we don't see the trails, and it's because they're not geometry, they're just splines. So the way you get those to render is that let's go in here in our little generator menu and create a sweep. So we're going to use the tracer as the thing that we want to sweep, and then we need something to sweep it with. So let's go and use the end side, which is kind of like a circle, but it's a cheaper way of using a circle because it doesn't have as many sides to it. So then we would grab our tracer, drop it in our sweep object, and then drop our end side in our sweep, and then make sure our end side's selected, go to the scale tool and scale it down because it's too big. So let's say we want these little ends like this. So now it'll have these little square trails on it, and just to make it look a little nicer, let's say we want to sharpen these ends. So the way we would do that is to go into the sweep, go into the object, and then pull down this details, and as you can see we have another spline just like we did for the effector, and these are in a lot of menus in Cinema 4D. And the way you use this is that this scale is controlling the sweep from one end to the other. So let's control click and create some points, and let's try dragging this one down, and oops, I dragged everything down. Let's drag, oh, and there we go. As you can see, this is sharpening the end of the sweep because that's what it's controlling. It's controlling this end. So now we can have these little sharp ends like that, and play it out. Now we have these little trails, and if we render it, we get the whole thing. And so you can get some cool looking stuff, like if I were to add a rotation field or have it bounce off things, because it would make the trails, and then you can render them. And so you can do some real creative, artistic, or even some visual effects stuff by using the tracer. So this was just kind of a basic Mograph thing. I'll go into Mograph in depth more in future tutorials, but I just wanted to show you the basics of how it works. So if you need to make something that's repetitive, like let's say a building, like building floors, you can build one floor and then drop it in the cloner and then clone it. And or if you're building like a bridge, or let's say planks on a bridge or something like that, you can use the cloner. So I just wanted to show you how the cloner works. So you can just add it to your little arsenal of tools for stuff. So just remember the modes and the count. And then one other thing, the last thing I didn't show you is, and it's probably better if I show it to you with the cube. Let's put a cube in here. You can control the position, scale, and rotation of the objects in your cloner by going to this transform tab. So now if I adjust the rotation here, you can see it's rotating all of the objects, and you can change their scale or whatever you want to do, their position, but it's usually scale or rotation. So that's just one last thing I wanted to show you here in Mograph.